Hey, what's up, everybody? Kevin here for Turn 1 Soul Ring. Please remember to check out our monthly giveaway of MTG products. You can find that giveaway at Turn 1 Soul Ring, the podcast, on Instagram. We appreciate each and every one of you. Now let's get to the show.
Turn 1 Soul Ring.
Got it.
Got it.
Yay. Mine's recording.
Congratulations.
Okay. You're supposed to say got it.
Got it?
You got it.
Get it? Got it? Good.
So remember when I was telling you guys, or when I was asking you guys if you had seen the final season of the Clone Wars show on Disney Plus, and you said you didn't?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was listening to the podcast the other day.
Nice. And you asked me if I had seen it. I think Riley asked me if I had seen it, and I said no. But they finally finished putting it all on Disney Plus, and I watched it, and it is really good.
Oh, yeah?
They wrapped it up really nicely. The middle part, there's like 4 episodes where Ahsoka is hanging out with these really low-level criminals, and that's kind of boring.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the very end where everything is happening in like the events of Revenge of the Sith are happening, while Ahsoka is with Captain Rex, like going on this mission to Mandalore to capture Darth Maul, or just Maul. He's not Darth Maul anymore, and then the clones turn on her, and I don't want to spoil it, but I mean, obviously the clones turn on her. But yeah, it was really fantastic. If you have an opportunity to even just watch like the last couple episodes, it's really cool to see another perspective of the events of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll have to check it out.
I really enjoyed it. You guys ready to start the show?
Always.
Well, in case you didn't know, you're listening to Turn 1 Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Riley.
And today on the show, we're going to be Dexplaining Riley's Rielle the Everwise Spellslinger Voltron Commander deck. Whew, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is definitely a mouthful.
Before we get to that, though, is there any MTG news that anybody wants to talk about?
Yes, sir. Just wanted to say something I thought was really cool that Wizards is doing. Since they had their CubeCon postponed, they're running 2 different cubes on MTGO. One's going to be from May 13th to the 20th, and then one is from the 20th to the 27th. And these are both built by Magic players.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to play some like pro players, like cubes that they built themselves and that are on the format. So I think it's a really fun time to try out something new and different. And this is just like a really neat event that they're doing in light of everything being closed as well. So I thought that was pretty neat. And so if anyone plays MTGO, I would recommend checking it out.
Yeah. Very nice. You know what? Actually, I do have something newsworthy that's pretty much just concerns us, but I think it could be a representation of Paper Magic in general, specifically Commander 20. I actually got a shipping confirmation on the C20 product that I ordered from an LGS in Ontario that I pre-ordered it from back in maybe the end of March.
Oh,
so yeah. I had said to you guys that possibly there were some distribution issues because of quarantine measures. I don't know if that information was correct, but hopefully what I've experienced is what is going to be happening with everybody else around the world that's pre-ordered their C20 product.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's nice because I know that I had watched a video from Alpha Investments, and he was talking about people having stories of like pre-ordering these things, and stores were canceling pre-orders and relisting at higher prices and stuff.
Yeah, so slimy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it'll, I think in that video, he also talked about how it'll also depend on whether or not there's a re-up or initial reprint wave of C20 as well.
Yeah.
Because then people who paid that price will, they're not going to feel good about that because, C20, which was maybe $300 previously, is back down to under $200, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So there can be a lot of feel-bads there.
Mm-hmm. But I think no matter what happens, we got it for a very good price.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to play that.
Mm-hmm.
Excited for the new league.
Yes. Me too. Yes.
New league, new points.
Can't wait. Not New Year, because we were still doing it. We didn't quite wrap it up in 2019, but doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's the C20 League.
Yes.
New enough.
Eric, is there anywhere that our listeners can find us on the social media?
Definitely. People, find us on Instagram at German Soul Ring the podcast. Also, if you want to contact us directly, let us know something. We do have an email. So at Gmail, you can find us at term1soulringthepodcast at gmail.com. And then also, we do have a YouTube channel. We got a podcast up on there. Find us there. Type in Term 1 Soul Ring the podcast. And make sure to type the podcast. That's important.
Well, before we get to the actual deck list here, I did look up some of the Rielle lore. There isn't much because she is a relatively new character.
Yeah.
At least new to us. But I will read what I've found here. This is just the MTG wiki page, so anybody could have just read this, but it's not very long. So, Rielle is a wilderness sage who met the planeswalker Vivian Reed near Lake Tael in Ketria shortly after Vivian arrived on the plane. She befriended the planeswalker and shared with Vivian many of the legends and secrets of Ikoria. Rielle seems to be especially versed in the mythos surrounding the apex monsters of the triomes. Rielle's wisdom is exceeded only by her age. Rielle herself claims to, quote, almost everything about almost everything on Ikoria, end quote. I don't know if that's, it's Vivian's only skepticism about that claim is how quickly the sage rattled off the list of things she supposedly didn't know. So, bit of a Mr. Magoo, maybe? Not sure. Not sure, but that's all they have here. So maybe we'll get more in the intervening years. But either way, doesn't really matter because we're just purely talking about her as a piece of cardboard.
I also like the flavor text on Rielle.
What is the flavor text? What is
Being
that?
all-knowing is a matter of remembering which things it is crucial to forget.
Okay. Yeah.
Forget about it.
That's right. Yeah, that'd be good flavor text too. Forget about it. All right.
It's got a little button on it.
We should read Rielle. Rielle is a legendary creature, human wizard, 0/3, that costs 1, a blue, and a red. And Rielle the Everwise gets +1/+0 for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. Whenever you discard one or more cards for the first time each turn, draw that many cards. Riley, what would you say the goal is of this deck?
Well, I would say the ideal situation is to get Rielle out early enough that you can still keep up some ways of protecting her, because she's inevitably going to be a target with that second ability, allowing you to draw off your discards.
Mm-hmm. Very powerful.
And then work your way through cycling or through drawing and discarding spells to fill up your graveyard full of instants and sorceries, and just use some evasive spell to smash your opponents in the face for commander damage.
Right. Perfect. Sounds good.
There's a couple backup plans, but that's kind of the main focus. Of course, it being kind of a Voltron-y type of deck. That's kind of the focus I tried to stick with. But knowing that inevitably she's going to be hated out of the game and I might need a plan B.
Yeah, for sure.
That is often the case when you're putting all your eggs into one basket, like in Voltron.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to the deck categories. So we just did these in order of card type. Let's start with, well, why don't we start with what really matters here, the instants. So we have Firestorm, Leap, Lightning Axe, Shadow Rift, Visions of Beyond, Arcane Denial, Censor, Confound, Counterspell, Fists of Flame. There's a bunch of these. Is It Charm, Keep Safe, Miscalculation. Love the Karn art on that one. Mission Briefing, Psychotic Fury, Raking Claws, Rights of Refusal, Teamer Battle Rage, Talarian Winds, Countervailing Winds, Forbid, Frantic Search, Neutralize, and Frostveil Ambush. So let's go through some of these that are a little less well known here. Firestorm's 1 red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard X cards. Firestorm deals X damage to each of X targets. I think this is on the reserve list.
Is it?
I think it is. Yeah. I could be wrong.
I know it's definitely a few bucks, but I don't know. Oh,
This card is definitely really good with Rielle, though.
Yep. Scryfall has
Yep.
it part of the reserved list. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but for sure, like, I think one of the nicest things about Rielle's second ability is that it considers each turn. So having these kind of instants that you can just dump your hand and get a new one is going to be a lot of fun. Firestorm, just for 1 red mana, like, it's usually a pretty big downside to be discarding a number of cards just to add a few points of extra damage.
Yeah.
But just how it scales and combined with Rielle's second ability, I just feel like it's gonna be a big bang and maybe take out a few creatures, or be the final nail in the coffin for an opponent, or just get rid of jank that's in your hand, because this deck is filled with jank, and some of that jank you just want in the graveyard.
Yeah, Deckstats has it at 175.71, so that is budget in my book.
Oh, really? It's gone down quite a bit. It might have been. Well, no, I guess it wouldn't have been reprinted because it's a reserve list. But at one point,
The whole deck.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant
The whole deck is $175.71.
Yeah, the entire deck.
Yeah, I can just see being able to even just for 1 red Firestorm discard 5 cards. That's 5 creatures you're getting rid of on the board, possibly.
Yeah.
Can you hit the same target twice?
No, I believe they have to be different
Yeah.
targets.
Yeah, each of
Yeah, and,
targets.
the great thing about Firestorm is even if you have it in hand and somebody wants to target Rielle to destroy her or exile her, you can still cast Firestorm and get the draw card effect. So it's not, it's not you still have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Just like many cards in this deck, I imagine.
On the flip side, if things don't quite go your way and your Firestorm gets counterspelled, I mean, it is an additional cost to discard those cards. So if Rielle's on the battlefield and her second ability triggers, that's going to be great. But it might be a little bit risky otherwise if somebody counters this, because then you've just pitched all those cards, and that could be a
bad.
sad time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not all upside. Another card here that I don't think I've ever seen before is Psychotic Fury. It's 1 and a red for an instant. Target multicolored creature gains double strike until end of turn. Draw a card.
Wax,
Yeah, man.
double strike. Multicolored.
That's from Dissension. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I just tried to pack the deck with as many cantrips as I could, and also considered those double striking cards like Raking Claws, Psychotic Fury, and Teamer Battle Rage.
Yeah, absolutely. Rights of Refusal is another one of my all-time favorite counter spells. It's 1 and a blue for an instant. Discard any number of cards. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3 for each card discarded this way. This can get even after a couple of cards. Like who even has 6 mana to counter a spell, right?
Yeah.
Or to make their spell resolve. You know what I mean?
It's like this card is only good in Rielle.
Well, I run this in Edric and Azami. It's good there too.
Yeah. And
Really?
Tellurian wins.
There's got to be better counter spells.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, of course there are, but it's only 1
Yeah.
in a blue. Like it's
Sure,
it's a really good cost. I mean, I do have better counter spells in the deck. Don't worry.
Yeah. Because it's late game, this doesn't do anything.
Yeah, top decking Rights of Refusal is going to be a bad time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how you do have my new favorite counterspell in here, Neutralize.
Yeah, it just seemed like a natural fit. Any time I had the opportunity to add in a cycling ability, I just felt that was
did.
perfect, because I mean, cycling, you can think of it as basically like casting a spell to get a card, right? But with Rielle, you're basically casting a spell to get 2 cards. So it just seemed like a natural 2-for-1 for Rielle, just to be able to cycle on somebody else's turn and get that big boost out of it.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
I also think Fists of Flame is pretty interesting it's an instant for 1 and a red. You draw a card, and then until end of turn, target creature gains trample and gets +1/+0 for each card you've drawn this turn. That's
Yeah.
like very jank, very very jank. But again, like if you wheel and then cast Fist of Flame, I think you're in a pretty good position.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Forbid is a classic, with
I love Forbid.
buyback of discard 2 cards. Basically, you're just, canceling somebody's spell, discarding 2, drawing 2, and getting a cancel back in your hand.
Yeah. Ugh. Love, but what a broken mechanic buyback is.
Yeah.
This looks fun.
Yeah.
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 I've always wanted to play Tolarian Winds in a deck for some reason. It's always been one of those cards that I've been like, this could almost be good if I wasn't like down a card when I was casting it. But Rielle definitely helps lessen the burden that it brings to the deck.
And then definitely Rielle's really cool for a Voltron style deck because other than like the other ones where you're worried about attaching things, if someone blows up the board, you're gone. But Rielle's caring about your graveyard, so if you can just stack your graveyard, if when you're recasting her, she instantly has that power bonus.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course, graveyard hate's going to be a concern, but there's some counter magic here, so you might be able to protect yourself in that way as well, which is kind of nice. It's not as one-sided as a mechanic like Hexproof would be for a traditional Voltron style.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's got its limitations as well, because of course you have to have the mana available and you have to have the spell. So, yeah.
Yes.
Shall we move on to the sorceries, the other half of what Rielle cares about?
Yes, sir.
All right, we have Artful Dodge, Breakthrough, Burning Inquiry, Careful Study, Cloak of Feathers, Faithless Looting, Magmatic Insight, Maximize Altitude, Maximize Velocity. Oh, okay.
Lots of maximizing.
Recall, Slip Through Space, Vandal Blast, Cathartic Reunion, Finale of Promise, Go for Blood, Collective Defiance, Windfall, Chandra's Ignition, Boon of the Wishgiver, Rise from the Dark Tides, and Blasphemous Act.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Artful Dodge is pretty sweet in any Voltron deck with blue in it.
Yeah. And I
being able to flash that back is so good.
Yeah, but then Rielle loses that +1.
We'll have lots of other spells.
I think I'd trade the +1 for unblockable.
Fair enough.
Especially
Seems like a good trade.
Yeah, especially since this deck is wheeling its hand so often that getting those cards in the bin that are able to be useful later on in the game, I think is going to be a big boost for Rielle. So that's why you'll see Maximize Altitude, Maximize Velocity with Jumpstart. So not only are you discarding a card and getting a trigger off Rielle, but you're also being able to use your graveyard to some extent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cloak of Feathers. This is a cool card from Portal, I think. Yeah. It's 1 blue for a sorcery. Target creature gains flying until end of turn. Draw a card.
Yeah.
I like it.
Just a sorcery speed version of Leap.
Yeah. It's got cool art on it.
I like your art.
I like your art.
Tell me about your art.
Whenever you can play Burning Inquiry and it's an upside for you, I think it's pretty fun.
Oh, yeah.
Because then each player has to do it as well. So I think that's just like a fun card in Commander to be able to cast.
Yeah. And Breakthrough is a card I've wanted to play for so long, but it just, again, it feels very much like Tolarian Winds. Like there's so much downside to that card unless you're pumping a ton of mana into it. But honestly, like just in playtesting this deck a little bit, just goldfishing on my own, I found like Breakthrough for 2 mana, so a blue and 1, just to be able to draw 4, discard your hand, draw that many cards, and keep one of those cards basically from the original draw 4 and discard was like enough that I was more than happy with it.
Because you're keeping at least one, like you get to keep the best card.
Yeah, exactly.
From there. Yeah, and then you just redraw anyways with Rielle.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of fun. Does everything you want it to do. Dumps your hand, fills up your graveyard, draws you way more cards for just like...
I have to say, I didn't even know like Breakthrough was a card.
Yeah, it's been sitting in one of my Commander binders for so long. And it's
you're like, I will play this card at some point.
Yeah. That's usually how it works. I feel like this deck is definitely brought some life to a number of cards that I've always had in my binder, but I've never actually used. It's just pure jank, but it might actually work.
Chandra's Ignition could also like win you the game without having to take everybody out with commander damage. It's 3 and 2 red for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent.
Yeah. No, that's a board wipe.
Totally. I really like that card. I run that in my Animar, and it always does work.
Yeah. You could, and I suppose Rise from the Tides is also like a potential, just a way that you can stay in the game if Rielle becomes too expensive to cost, or just a way that, instants and sorceries matter that doesn't just concern Rielle.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a couple
seems like one of the backups.
Yeah, there's a couple cards in here that kind of lend itself to the instant and sorcery theme. Just in case that is exactly the case where Rielle is just not viable anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if nothing else, what I like about this deck is, if for whatever reason your main game plan is no longer viable, there are a couple of cards that let you do a lot of recasting from your graveyard. So in the event of that situation, you could always just cause chaos at the table, which, is fun. If you have the mana, and the wherewithal to do it.
Yeah. The card Recall is a card that I discovered when I was building my original Kess Storm deck, because it was one of the few ways that I could actually bring back my 1,000-Year Storm if it was destroyed. Just because, Grixis doesn't really have access to much permanent graveyard recursion, but Recall is XX blue for a sorcery, discard X cards, then return a card from your graveyard to your hand for each card discarded this way, and exile Recall. So it was just one of those, again, synergy pieces with Rielle where, like you said, if there's something in the bin that I need later, then Recall is just one of those outs to get it back and synergize a little bit with Rielle as well.
Yeah, totally.
So let's move on to, the next couple categories are just one card categories. So we'll go to enchantments. So here we have Shark Typhoon. So if you didn't listen to our our Ikoria set review episode, Shark Typhoon is 5 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. It has cycling, X, 1 blue. When you cycle Shark Typhoon, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. Yeah, this card's pretty spicy. You can get a lot of little baby sharks if you don't cycle it.
Yeah, if you have Rielle, it's a cycling ability, so synergy there. And it's also one of those backup win conditions where, again, if Rielle is uncastable, Shark Typhoon is going to make you an army in short order.
I think any kind of spellcaster deck should kind of take a look at this card, because I think Shark Typhoon's actually got some real power to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
I agree.
Gonna,
and after
pick up a foil,
it probably won't be that expensive. But yeah, after casting Rielle the third time, it's already more expensive than Shark Typhoon. So maybe if you find yourself in that point during a game, you should just make Shark Typhoon your secret commander.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the other one card category here. It's Planeswalkers. We have the Royal Scions. It is a blue and a red for a Planeswalker. +1 ability is draw a card, then discard a card. Other +1 ability is target creature gets +2/+0 and gains first strike and trample until end of turn. That's nice. And their -8 is draw 4 cards. When you do, the Royal Scions deal damage to any target equal to the number of cards in your hand. Okay, cool.
For the most part, it's just in here for those 2+1 abilities, because either option synergizes very well with Rielle, whether you're getting additional card draw or just forcing through extra damage.
I have to say the Royal Scions is a newer card that's one of my all-time favorites. Play in Standard. I played a Brawl deck around it. I played in Modern.
Yeah.
hits home for me of just how good this card is. And then of course you draw a card, you discard a card, Rielle's out, you draw a card, and just having something static on the board to give Rielle trample is great. And then of course the +2/+0 is adding more commander damage, and it's first strike, so somebody can't really block it anyways because
Yeah.
your Rielle won't die. It's got first strike.
Yeah, they're just going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the artifacts. We have Soul Ring, Soul Guide Lantern. That's a newer one.
Yeah.
Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, Is It Signet, Mind Stone, Prismatic Lens, Talisman of Creativity, and Sentinel Tower. Riley, I have to commend you on how tight this ramp package is.
Oh, yeah.
Nice ones and twos. That's what Kevin wants to see.
Yeah. This deck felt so low to the ground to begin with, and there's so much card draw that I figured, even though like my traditional ramp package is usually looking for about 10 sources, give or take, and I think if you're just looking at the artifacts here, there's only 7 sources here.
Yeah.
There's also a myriad landscape if it comes down to it. So I went a little lighter on my traditional ramp, but I felt like it works with the deck.
Definitely for a commander deck, like your average is 2.6, so
Yeah.
that's pretty low.
Yeah. I really like Soul Guide Lantern. This is a newer card. So Soul Guide Lantern is 1 mana for an artifact. When Soul Guide Lantern enters the battlefield, exile target card from a graveyard. You can tap it, sacrifice it, exile each opponent's graveyard. Very nice.
Yeah.
And you can also pay 1 to tap and sacrifice it to draw a card. So yeah, I really like how this is a one-sided exile graveyard effect, because you will inevitably come up against other graveyard decks, and it's nice to have this surgical tool.
Yeah, and of course, being graveyard based myself, I didn't really want to run like a Relic of Progenitus.
No,
of course not.
Seemed like a great include.
Yeah, I put one of these into my mono red Duretti deck, and it's really good because I can also recur it.
Yeah.
So
ooh, that's nice.
It's a little egg and graveyard hate.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. Yeah, this is a super cool card from Theros Beyond Death. Ikoria is the new standard set. I just, we do this show and I feel like I can keep up less now than I could before. And I'm paying more attention, so I don't know. Anyways,
yeah, I like that card because it's like on top of it being like graveyard hate. If no one's running graveyard hate, you're just like, I'm just gonna draw a card.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we were talking about this other card before because I didn't know it existed. We have Sentinel Tower in the deck, which is 4 of anything for an artifact. Whenever an instant or sorcery spell is cast during your turn, Sentinel Tower deals damage to any target equal to 1 plus the number of instant sorcery spells cast before that spell this turn. So you're storming off and you're dealing damage at the same time.
Yeah, and of course, like you could probably replace this with something like Aetherflux Reservoir if you wanted to, if that was your your win condition that you wanted to go for.
If you have like $7 lying around.
Sentinel Tower, I've always wanted to try it out. I felt like just the flexibility, even though it's targeted, you're not. I guess Aetherflux Reservoir is targeted as well when you pay 50 life, but but it seems to scale well as a form of creature removal as well, because it can hit any target.
That's very true.
Oh, it can hit any target. It can even hit planeswalkers.
Oh yeah,
oh, boy,
any target.
Nice.
Yeah,
it's like yeah, idiot. I said any target.
All right, what about creatures?
What about creatures? We have 9 creatures.
Yeah.
We have Baral, Chief of Compliance, Enigma Drake, Spellheart Chimera, Crackling Drake, Mirror Mad Phantasm. I really like this card.
Yeah.
Ox of Agonos. That was my pre-release kit. Agonis?
Yeah.
Got it. Charmbreaker Devils, Torrential Gearhulk, and Bedlam Reveler. The Mirror Mad Phantasm really caught my eye. So this is 3 and 2 blue for a Spirit 5/1 with flying. It has an activated ability for 1 and a blue. Mirror Mad Phantasm's owner shuffles it into their library. If that player does, they reveal cards from the top of that library until a card named Mirror Mad Phantasm is revealed. The player puts that card onto the battlefield and all other cards revealed this way into their graveyards. I goldfished some hands with this deck as well, and sort of, did some imaginary play. And at one time, I shuffled Mirror Man Phantasm into the deck, and I did the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think I got about 72 cards deep before I found it. So there's going to be a lot of situations where you're going to go, even going like 20 or 30 cards deep. The bulk of this deck is instants and sorceries combined. There's 45. So you're going to get just like Rielle is going to get so big.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, this is such a neat card. I mean, 5/1, it's terrible, but who cares?
But at the end of the day, if you want to like Teamer Battle Rage this thing, like it could do some damage too.
You're right.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing it's flying, so it can dodge stuff if you're wanting to swing in, right?
Yeah, for sure. But it was exactly as Kevin described. Like I goldfished a couple times with this, and it was so fun. I just loved just flipping each card into the graveyard, and your graveyard is the stack that used to be your deck, and you've got like 10 cards to work with, and and Rielle's like impossible to deal with it that way. I mean, you could still bolt her, but.
Yeah, you can always bolt her.
She is in bolt range. It's good card and commander.
Yeah.
And then we can obviously see we have the backup plans here as well, because like Enigma Drake, Spellheart Chimera, Crackling Drake all do the same thing. Just good flying beaters when we have all the spells in the graveyard.
And they almost act as secondary commanders, which is what you always want to put into all your commander decks.
Yeah, for sure. And Crackling Drake is particularly good because it also counts the instants and sorceries in exile as well. So if you do get your graveyard wiped, then you have that backup plan with Crackling Drake.
Drake is somewhere in the deck.
That's what we call power creep. Cares about exile.
I also really like Bedlam Reveler. It's cool that this card's in here. So it's 6 of anything and 2 red for a 3/4 Devil Horror. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. It has prowess, and when Bedlam Reveler enters the battlefield, discard your hand, then draw 3 cards.
Yeah, and very similar to Ox of Agonis as well. Ox of Agonis came in with Theros Beyond Death. So when it enters the battlefield, discard your hand, draw 3 cards, and it has escape for red, exile 8 other cards from your graveyard, and it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it.
So yeah, the Ox is like, you're dumping everything into the graveyard. This guy's in there. You'll be able to wheel your hand whenever you want, kind of.
Yeah. So more of that graveyard synergy. Of course, exiling 8 is a little bit tough, but there's a ton of instants and sorceries in here that allow you to discard cards or wheel your hand. So you're inevitably going to have a number of lands or creatures in the bin anyways that you're not going to really have access to. So hopefully you can kind of minimize that downside of exiling 8.
Yeah, like I think you're going to be in a position probably, well, hopefully, like maybe you'd only have to exile like maybe 4 instant or sorceries or something. The other 4, is just chaff from when things have been discarded. So
yeah,
you got to separate the wheat from the chaff. That's for sure, guys.
Oh boy.
This is words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom from Kevin.
Let's move on to the real meat of this thing.
Lands?
The lands. Yeah.
Yeah, get those lands.
Shall we? Okay, we got 34 lands. That's a good number. We have Ash Barrens, Cascade Bluffs, Cephalid Coliseum, Command Tower, Desolate Lighthouse, Drownyard Temple, Exotic Orchard, Fabled Passage, Fiery Islet, Forgotten Cave, Gyre Reach Sanitarium, Hanwire Battlements, 5 Islands, Is It Boiler Works, Lonely Sandbar, 5 Mountains, Myriad Landscape, Mystic Sanctuary, Reflecting Pool, Remote Isle, Rogue's Passage, Shivan Reef, Smoldering Crater, Steam Vents, Sulphur Falls, and Temple of Epiphany.
Yeah, what is this Cephalid Coliseum?
It's a great card. This is from a whole cycle of lands that had thresholds that tapped for a colored mana and dealt 1 damage to you.
Like Barbarian Ring.
So so the Cephalid Coliseum is going to tap to give you blue and does a damage. Threshold, you pay a blue and tap it, sacrifice the Coliseum. Target player draws 3 cards, then discards 3 cards. Activate this ability only if you have 7 more cards in graveyard. That's the threshold part.
Mm-hmm. It's the threshold reminder text, in case you forgot about threshold.
Just a late game ancestral recall on a land.
Yeah, that's a good way to put
it. Well, I mean, with Rielle on the battlefield, of course.
But... Yeah, Rielle's got to be out.
Yeah, otherwise you're just filtering.
There's a number of tap lands, and I know what you're saying, Kevin. You're saying there's too many tap lands here.
Oh, I was going to say that, but, a bunch of 4 of them are cycling lands. So you can think about those as, paying a red or a blue and discarding and drawing 2 cards.
Exactly, yeah. And the cycling lands I felt like were pretty important. And usually I'm not a big fan of the double mana tap bounce lands.
Right, the Is It Boilerwork.
Yeah, Is It Boilerworks in this case. I felt like it was good synergy with the cycling lands because you would have that opportunity. Early in the game, you're playing out your lands as you would. And then later, if you pick up Is It Boilerworks, it basically turns into a cycling land.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well when I was trying to break down this land base.
Yeah,
and you could also do that with what's that other one? Mystic Sanctuary. You bounce that back to your hand and use it again.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mystic Sanctuary is a super good card.
Yeah. Big fan. And Drown Your Temple, it's got an activated ability where you can pay 3 and return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Again, you're wheeling, discarding cards from your hand, so it's just another form of ramp.
Right.
You're not going to be playing this from your hand unless you're desperate. You're going to be using it as ramp.
Yes, and but otherwise, you got a bunch of 2-colored lands that most of them don't enter the battlefield tapped except Temple of Epiphany, which I think you could take out of here. I don't think it's...
Yeah, probably. I like the temples.
Yeah, they're, again, it's like tap lands, they're fine in the early game, but you don't want to draw them late game, and sometimes you will draw them late game if they are in your deck.
Yeah.
With the great thing about the cycling lands, like we already said, if Rielle's on the battlefield, you're getting value off of those. If Rielle's on the battlefield, you're not getting any additional value from Temple of Epiphany. You might just be in a situation where you needed an island or a mountain.
Yeah.
But Scry's not nothing.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, this meta base could probably be worked on a little bit more as well. It probably doesn't need all these different types of land. You could probably run a lot more basics, just given the fact that you're going to be seeing so much of your deck. So, yeah, you could probably even cut down on the amount of cycling lands as well. I really like that synergy.
Absolutely. And it's funny, the land base, I imagine, is probably the most expensive part, the most expensive category of the deck.
Yeah.
I would think, maybe not, but I'd put my money on it.
Yeah, I would even maybe not even run the Exotic Orchard and the Reflecting Pool, and maybe put some more islands in here, just so that you know that you can get your Mystic Sanctuary online when it does come up.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Oh, good. Yeah, good point, Eric.
Yeah, because you do need the 3 islands out there to get your spell back. So,
yeah,
he's right.
Got him.
I like the Rogue's Passage.
I was just gonna say, good card.
You gotta have that in every Voltron deck. Really in any deck where your commander is just gonna get big, it's not a bad idea to just throw that in your deck, assuming you're not running too many other utility lands, because of course you have to think about mana color distribution. Yeah,
you do need colors to cast your spells,
unless you have a colorless commander, obviously.
Okay, now Kevin.
Sorry. Yeah, that's the deck list. We're going to have it in the show notes, so you can check it out. You can go and check out all of Riley's decks on Deckstats. He's got some fun ones.
All 5 of them.
That's right, yeah. So let's move on to how to beat this deck. We sort of touched on it a little bit already, but obviously Graveyard Hate would do the trick. Cards like Rest in Peace or Leyline of the Void for a more permanent solution. But just like Soul Guide Lantern, there are a ton of one-shot graveyard removal cards and some of them can trip, a lot of them can trip. This one, Soul Guide Lantern is so perfect because it's one-sided. But if you don't want to run any artifacts or enchantments or any kind of other graveyard hate to take up a playable slot in your deck, then everybody can just put Scavenger Grounds in their deck, and it's just taking up a land slot. That works too.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Scavenger Grounds is pretty good. It hits all graveyards, though.
Yeah, of course.
I'd be a little bit hesitant in that regard, but
No, I didn't. No, I didn't mean put it in the deck. I'm saying like this is like as an opponent, this is how I would deal with this deck.
yeah. Sorry.
All good. So the other thing too, like again, like any Voltron deck that doesn't have Sigarda as their commander, Edict effects will work really well against this deck.
Yeah, most likely. Like, unless I get a bunch of zombies from Rise from the Tides or a couple sharks from Shark Typhoon, like, I'm not going to have too much fodder to sacrifice.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so Edicts are going to get through to Rielle.
Yeah, and there are probably going to be a lot of times where you don't even necessarily have another creature on the battlefield to sacrifice. You mentioned Shark Typhoon and Rise from the Tides. Otherwise, you have 9 creatures in the deck. So
Yeah, it's pretty slim.
Also, any kind of targeted removal, because the deck isn't running any kind of boots. So
That's true.
get in there.
Got a little bit of counter magic, but nothing staying on the battlefield forever.
yeah, that's true. And the other thing is that you're in red. So if you do have to recast Rielle a couple of times, you could give her haste if you wanted to build that into the deck like relatively easily.
Yeah, and I've got things like handwear battlements and maximize velocity.
Handwear. Yeah, I was thinking about throwing this into Narset. I wonder if it's worth it. It is a very good land.
Yeah, only paying the 1 red to tap is pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, but things like in a deck like that where when you cast Narset, like you don't have any other mana, right? Like it's it's the first time. So cards like Torch Courier are really good because you can just like sacrifice it and give Narset haste. But yeah, this is much better in a longer game. That's how like I would kind of deal with this deck. It does seem really synergistic and consistent. But let's move on to just sort of, I have this section called honorable mention. So this is just a section where Eric and I have taken a look at this deck beforehand, and these are we've got some like card suggestions that we would make to improve it. So Eric, do you want to take it away, buddy?
Yeah, actually, I had a fun one. It just made me remind when we were talking about the Sentinel's Tower. There's another card kind of like that I've ran in the past. It's more expensive, so it's 7 mana for an artifact.
Okay.
But it's the Sphinx Bone Wand.
Oh, yeah.
And so whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, you need to put a charge counter on the wand. If you do, the Bone Wand deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target creature or player.
Cool.
So this just keeps leveling up.
Yeah, just keeps getting bigger. I like it. I like it a lot.
Can't hit a planeswalker though.
Well, it might be errated.
It's a player or plane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's errated to any target. So
yeah, cool.
So we've talked about this a little bit, but like having alternate win conditions especially in a Voltron deck, because in a lot of games, and I know this from experience, you put yourself in a position where you've eliminated one opponent with commander damage, and then your other 2 or 3 remaining opponents, ideally just 2, see that you have a one-shot kill creature on the board that's evasive that they need to do something about. So, they have to join forces. And a lot of times it is really easy to take the Voltron player out of the game, or at least take their commander out of the game. So something that I would try to slot in here is maybe the new Jace Planeswalker or Thassa's Oracle, if you are like going through your deck that much, or if you do get a good like Mirror Mad Phantasm off and you're in a position to win that way.
Yeah, I'd definitely consider slotting in Thassa's Oracle. I mean, at worst, she's some sacrifice fodder to those edict effects.
Yeah.
But Jace, I feel like Jace might be a little bit fragile, but at that point, like if you're casting him and activating his ability and winning the game with him, like that obviously does the trick. But if I was at that position, I think I'd rather have Thassa's Oracle.
Me too. Yeah. I agree. The only other thing that I have here is the cycling lands and the Is It Boilerworks, which we already talked about. So it's funny that you guys know that I would take exception with that.
We know.
So the last thing here that I would take out of the deck is, well, I really wouldn't take anything out of the deck except Myriad Landscape.
Oh yeah.
It's just this card. I think I talked about this a little bit in a couple episodes ago when we were talking about upgrading C20, and I was talking about removing Crows and Verge and Myriad Landscape from one of the decks that I was upgrading. And, it's the same story here. I just feel like it's very slow. It's 4 mana over 2 turns to get 2 lands, and they have to be the same basic land type. And that's just too slow for me. I know this deck isn't trying to win terribly fast, but I think this deck can win really, really fast. And I don't think you want a Myriad Landscape in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be open to that. Yeah, especially since it's so low to the ground. I think having an untapped land is probably going to be a little bit better in most cases.
Yeah. But there are definitely decks that want Myriad Landscape, but I think I've taken it out of so many decks. Most of my decks. I don't even know if I still have it in like the lands decks. The lands matter. But anyways, it's a fine card. But otherwise, this deck seems really reliable and fun to play.
I do like the deck list a lot, and I would love to even just play this deck. It seems like a lot of fun.
Riley's probably not going to let you play it.
Yeah.
I'll let you play it.
I had a couple other cards that might be kind of fun to throw into the deck.
Yeah, let's hear them.
I don't know what you would remove, but I do really like Runehorn Hellkite. This guy's a 6 mana 5/5 flyer. That's not the point. It has an ability where you pay 6 mana and you exile a Hellkite from the graveyard, and then each player discards his or her hand and draws 7 cards.
Oh, spicy.
Yeah, so it's just like another kind of backup wheel that if this gets milled into your graveyard, you're like, I can wheel whenever I want now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be open to that. I did have Shattered Perception. I think that's the card's name. I had it in there originally. Just let me look it up.
You should put Dragon Mage in, because every time it connects, I think it's... Oh yeah, you did have this card in here. So I can read it. I found it. It's 2 and a red for sorcery. Discard all the cards in your hand, then draw that many cards, and it has flashback for 5 and a red.
Yeah, the cool thing about the Hellkite is it makes you draw 7. It doesn't care about what your hand size is.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. And it does affect everybody, so it can definitely throw people off or draw them into removal. But
yeah. 21 new options.
Yeah,
it's always good and bad. I do find it fun when you wheel and people are quite annoyed.
Yeah,
I liked my hand.
That is a lot of fun.
I did find in just doing some gold fishing and looking at the deck for cuts, Shattered Perception was one of those cards that it felt like it was on theme, but it also felt like I could be doing something else or something a little bit more. So I do like that suggestion for sure in place of something like Shattered Perception. Yeah.
I did look up Dragon Mage, and whenever Dragon Mage deals combat damage to a player, each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. Not that you should or would put this in the deck.
Yeah, 7 mana for a flying 5/5.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, it sucks that it has to deal. It's not even an attack trigger. You have to get that damage through.
Yeah, it could be some.
Why?
It could be pretty janky.
Yeah, and then there's that new Surly Badgesaur.
Surly.
Yep. Surly
Badgesaur. It's okay. It's kind of more jank, I feel, but can give you more mana because whenever you discard a creature card, you get a 1/1 counter or whatever. But if you discard a land card, you get a treasure token, which is kind of spicy.
Yeah, and there was some one of the reasons that I didn't include too many creatures with cycling is I did really want to focus a lot more on the instants and sorceries.
Because that's what Rielle cares about, right?
Yeah, so I was looking at something like Windcaller Aven, which cycles for a blue, and when you cycle it, you give target creature flying until end of turn. And I felt like that was right on theme with what I wanted, Rielle to get evasion, to use a cycling ability, but it being a creature, I wasn't totally sold on it. So I was being really picky by the end of my cuts with how many creatures I was actually including.
Yeah, which is fair. The last card I have here, he's just a powerhouse. The Locust God, I felt would be.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just has high synergy. Gets you away from those edict effects as well. It's another one of those things in the deck to have like that.
Yeah, another win con for sure.
Yeah, if you have both Locust God and Rielle out on the table, I just feel like you're gonna have so many insects and and such.
Yeah, and I have a spare insect token in paper if you end up putting this in the deck, Riley.
Perfect.
I'll keep it in mind.
All right, folks. Well, that's the deck. And unless anyone has anything else to say, we're going to wrap this episode up.
Rielle is cool. Looks like a lot of fun. I always like slinging spells too. I love Izzet, so.
Yeah, I'm super excited to crack this deck out when, one day when the world resumes some form of normality.
Yeah, things are opening back up again. I'm actually toying with the idea of getting a haircut. I really need one. Actually, I was going to ask you guys about that. Well, not you, Riley, because you have long hair. But Eric, have you just let your hair get big and poofy?
Yeah, like my hair is starting to get a little out of control.
Okay, did you get a haircut like right before things shut down?
Relatively before. I think it was at the beginning of March. No, it might have been February, but yeah.
Well, I'm sure, I don't know why I brought that up. I'm sure nobody wants to hear about our haircuts or lack thereof. But like we said, there's going to be the link to the full deck list in the show notes if you want to take a look at that, as well as the links to all three of our Deckstats accounts containing all the deck lists we've posted so far, not just the ones we've done for the shows that we've done in the past 60 episodes. We would like to thank you for listening, obviously, and we'd also like to thank our lovely editor Ainsley for the behind-the-scenes work that she does each and every week. And if you want to find Riley or myself on social media, we can find Riley at Riley_Dayton on Instagram. Or what is your Twitter handle, Riley?
It's at Riles Dayton.
And you can find me at Command Beacon on Instagram. And that's it, folks. We'll talk to you next week.
See you later.
Turn one soul ring.
You know what I was thinking? You could actually get if you get a Rielle altered, you could change it to like Louis Rielle, the I don't know, the terrorist or something or whatever you want to call him. I don't know.
The father of Manitoba.
Yeah, that's right. That works too. That's a lot for the text box, but a good altruist could make it fit.
What fits better, traitor or father?
It's close. It's gonna be a close one for sure.